They say, if you hear your name called in the woods, never look back. If you hear whistling when you're alone, never whistle back. We like to think that when we step into nature, we are just visitors watching the wildlife. But what happens when the wildlife starts watching us? What happens when the deer on the trail has human eyes? Or when a goat stands on its hind legs and whistles a tune? Today, I'm going to share 3 terrifying true encounters from people who walked into the woods looking for peace and found something that defies evolution, something that mimics us. This is the uncanny valley of the wild. Our first story takes us back to 2015, deep in the rugged backcountry of Arizona. For an avid hiker, the allure of an unknown trail is hard to resist. The isolation is supposed to be peaceful, but sometimes isolation just means no one is there to hear you scream. The witness, let's call him Mark, found a trailhead hidden behind a wall of thick, overgrown bushes. It wasn't on any map. There was no parking lot, no signs, just a faint, faded path cutting through the desert scrub and leading up into the mountains. Mark preferred these low-traffic trails. He wanted to clear his mind. As he hiked deeper, the landscape began to change. The vibrant desert flora gave way to a dying forest. Trees stood like skeletons, gray and brittle. It was clear no human had maintained this trail in years. He was miles in, completely alone, when he heard it, a distinct melodic whistle. Not a bird, a human whistle. It came from up the mountain, a few distinct notes held long and clear before cutting off into silence. Mark froze. The hair on his arms stood up. It was creepy, sure, but his rational brain took over. He told himself, just another hiker, maybe someone further up the ridge. He kept walking. 20 minutes passed. The silence of the dead forest returned, until it was broken again. The same melody, but this time much closer. Mark gripped the pocket knife in his pocket. He wasn't going to turn back just because of a noise, but his senses were on high alert now. As he rounded a bend, he stumbled upon a small, hidden valley. It looked like an old riverbed, dried up long ago. But right in the center of this clearing sat something that made his blood run cold. A den, but not an animal den. It was a structure made of large, heavy sticks, woven together with a complexity that no animal could achieve. It was man-made, crude but deliberate. Mark stared at it, and the pieces started to click together. The whistling, the isolation, this structure. Someone or something was living here. A wave of primal dread washed over him. His gut screamed at him to leave now. He turned around to head back the way he came, desperate to get out of this valley. But as he turned, the whistle happened again. It came from directly behind him. Mark spun around, heart hammering against his ribs, expecting to see a deranged hermit or a mountain lion. Instead, he saw a goat. It was standing just beyond the stick den, partially obscured by the brush. But it wasn't grazing. It wasn't moving. It was staring directly at him. Its size was wrong, far too large for any mountain goat he had ever seen in Arizona. It stood with an unnatural stillness, like a statue carved from bone. Mark was paralyzed. His brain couldn't process what he was seeing. A goat. Had a goat made the sound? He tried to back away slowly, keeping his eyes locked on the creature. He took one step back. The goat's jaw unhinged. It opened its mouth slightly, in a way that looked mechanically wrong, and from its throat came that sound, the same human whistle. Mark didn't wait to see what happened next. Panic took the wheel. He turned and sprinted. He ran down that mountain faster than he had ever moved in his life, tripping over rocks, crashing through the dead branches, tearing his clothes. As he scrambled down the fading trail, he heard it one last time, that whistle echoing softly down the canyon walls, mocking him. Mark never told anyone this story for years. He thought they'd call him a coward. But recently, he learned about the legends of the Skinwalker. Now he knows that the thing in the valley wasn't a goat. It was something wearing a goat, like a suit. If you grew up in the Midwest, you probably know what a snipe hunt is. It's a rite of passage, a prank parents play on kids to scare them a little. They tell you about a fake creature called a snipe, usually described as an aggressive bird or beast, and send you into the dark woods to catch it. For our next witness, this childhood prank turned into a trauma that would haunt him for life. It was a family camping trip in Wisconsin. Every year, his dad and his dad's best friend, Billy, would take the families out in RVs. This particular year, the dad and Billy decided it was time for the legendary snipe hunt. They hyped it up all day. "We heard one last night," they whispered to the kids. "It's aggressive. It hides in the trees." The kids, being young and gullible, ate it up. They were terrified but excited, armed with sticks and wooden swords, ready for battle. As the sun set and the woods turned pitch black, the group set off. Billy had run ahead earlier to scout the area, which really meant he was hiding to jump out and scare them. 10 minutes into the walk, rustling erupted from the trees. Billy jumped out screaming, pretending to be attacked by a snipe. Chaos ensued. The kids screamed. They scattered in every direction. Our witness, just 8 years old at the time, didn't know it was a joke. He thought a monster was attacking. He sprinted blindly into the darkness, running until his lungs burned, finally diving into a large bush to hide. He curled up in a ball, trying not to cry, trying to be as silent as possible. Minutes passed. The screaming of the other kids faded away. Silence returned to the Wisconsin woods. Slowly, the boy peeked out from the leaves of the bush, and that's when he saw it. It wasn't Billy. It wasn't his dad. Walking slowly past his hiding spot was something else. It resembled a dog, but completely wrong. Its legs were abnormally long and spindly, like stilts that could barely support its weight. Its head was mangled, deformed, twisting at an odd angle. Patches of mange and fur were scattered across its pale, sickly skin. The boy watched, mesmerized by the horror of it. He could hear a sound coming from the thing, a faint, rhythmic moaning. It wasn't aggressive. It was just pacing. He felt a sickness in his stomach, a heavy, dark dread that he couldn't explain at 8 years old. He felt like he was in a trance, watching this abomination move through the moonlight. Suddenly, a voice broke the silence. "Hey, where are you guys?" It was his dad calling out for him. Twigs snapped in the distance as his father approached. The creature stopped. It froze mid-step. It slowly turned its mangled head and looked the boy dead in the eyes. For a second, they locked gazes. Then, the spell was broken. His dad grabbed his arm, hoisting him up. "I got you. It's okay. It was just a joke. I'm sorry you ran so far." The dad was apologizing, thinking the boy was traumatized by the prank, but the boy wasn't listening. He whipped his head around to look back at the spot where the creature had stood. It was gone. No sound of running away, no rustling leaves, just gone. He told his dad immediately, "I saw the snipe. I saw it." His dad laughed it off. "Snipes aren't real, buddy. It was probably just a big coyote." But the boy knew. Coyotes don't have legs like stilts. Coyotes don't moan. Years later, looking back on that memory, he realizes he wasn't looking at a dog. He was looking at something that was trying to be a dog. Our final story takes us to the deep isolation of Canada. Living off the grid is a dream for many, a life of peace, quiet, and self-reliance. But when you live miles away from the nearest road, you aren't just isolated from people, you are isolated from help. The witness lived in a cabin with his wife and 2 kids for 10 years. It was a good life, until the forest changed. It started with the livestock. One night, late, the cattle in the pen began to panic. They were thrashing, moving frantically to the far left side of the field. The witness went to the window to see what spooked them. Wolves? Bears? He scanned the darkness. On the right side of the field, partially hidden behind a tree, stood a massive deer. It wasn't doing anything. It wasn't grazing. It was just watching the house. The cattle were terrified of a deer? It didn't make sense, but an uneasy feeling settled in his stomach, so he closed the curtains. Weeks passed. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. Then came the night his wife woke him up. "Shh, listen," she whispered, terror in her eyes. Something was outside. It sounded like someone was dragging a heavy stick along the rough wooden logs of the cabin walls. Scream, scream. It moved slowly, all the way around the house. It wasn't an animal looking for food. It was taunting them. When the sound completed a full circle and stopped, the witness grabbed his hunting rifle. He checked the kids. They were asleep. He moved from window to window, peering into the abyss. Nothing. Until he reached his bedroom window. There it was, the same large deer, standing at the edge of the tree line, staring. It hadn't moved. It was as if it was waiting for him to look. The paranoia began to rot their peaceful life from the inside out. The witness didn't believe in the paranormal. He was a practical man. But this defied logic. The breaking point came the next morning. Desperate for answers, he decided to walk a few miles to his nearest neighbor's cabin. He told his wife to lock the doors and keep the kids inside. He began the hike. The woods felt heavy. Every rustle of leaves sounded like a threat. Halfway to the neighbors, a sudden wave of nausea hit him, that instinctual alarm bell that rings when a predator is near. He heard a crunch behind him. He turned around. Standing right there on the path, just 15 feet away, was the deer. It hadn't made a sound approaching him, but at this distance, he saw what he had missed through the window. He looked into its eyes. Deer have large, dark, alien eyes. This creature had white sclera. It had small, round pupils. It had human eyes. Staring into those eyes, he saw intelligence. He saw malice. He didn't raise his rifle. He didn't shout. He turned and ran. He ran until his chest felt like it would explode, bursting into his neighbor's cabin, practically in tears. His neighbor, an old-timer who had lived in those woods for decades, didn't laugh. He didn't call him crazy. He listened, and then quietly, he spoke about the Navajo legends of the Skinwalker. He said, "They only show themselves if they want something or if you've disturbed them." The witness went home that day, terrified. They moved closer to town shortly after. He never told his wife about the eyes. He never told his kids why they really left the farm. But 15 years later, he still feels the urge to warn people, because sometimes when he's biking or hiking in the woods near his new home, out of the corner of his eye, he sees it, watching, waiting. The woods are vast, and we have explored so little of them. We assume that if something walks on 4 legs, it's an animal. But legends from every corner of the globe warn us otherwise. So the next time you are on a hike and you see a deer standing a little too still, or a goat that seems to be listening to your conversation, don't make eye contact. And for God's sakes, don't whistle back. Thanks for watching. If you have a story from the deep woods, let us know in the comments. Stay safe out there.